Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am going to be filming another video this week, and I'm sorry I've been absent, but I have been posting some gaming related videos on this channel. But this week, I asked on my Twitter, and a lot of you responded that you wanted another sociology video. And since I'm a senior, I am going to be doing my last semester this fall for my sociology degree. I thought that this would be a great time to do a video that's basically me reviewing my sociology degree, the sociology major at Pitzer College. But I wanted to clarify, so I am a Scripps College student, which is one of the 5 colleges in the consortium of the Claremont colleges, but Scripps does not offer a sociology major. And if your major is not offered at Scripps, then you are allowed to major off campus at another college within the consortium. And there is a sociology major at Pitzer and a sociology major at Pomona College. So I weighed my options and decided to do my major at Pitzer. The reason that I'm calling this like reviewing my sociology degree at Pitzer, even though I'm a Scripps student, well, I took every single one of my sociology classes at Pitzer College. So I feel like if you're either a Pitzer student or a Scripps student or a CMC student or something like that, it would be helpful for you to know the college rather than saying like that I did it at Scripps when Scripps doesn't have a sociology major. So hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, I also wanted to make a really important advertisement before I get into the video. So this summer I decided to set my mind to a personal project, and that is starting my own website. And I've been working on it for the past couple weeks, and I'm super proud of the way that it turned out. So if you're so inclined, you can go in the link down below, and I have a link to my website. So not only have I just been putting my video content on that website, I've also been starting to write my own blog. And if you follow me on Twitter or Instagram and other social media, you'll know that I'm very active and vocal about Indigenous resistance, California Indian history, Indigenous rights, and stuff like that. And I wanted a space where I could do more long-form writing, and I'm not just going to talk about Indigenous resistance and Indigenous politics and stuff. I want to write about other things, but that's definitely what's on my mind right now. So you can also check out my blog, which is on that website as well. And my last advertisement, well, actually 2 more advertisements. Second to last is that if you go on my website, there is a newsletter tab, and I'm going to be starting a newsletter. And if you don't know what a newsletter is, it's basically you sign up with your email, and then mostly on a monthly basis for me, but for other places, on a monthly basis, I will send you an email to the email that you signed up with, and I'm basically going to be doing like personal updates, like where I'm at in my life, how things are going for me. I'm going to be telling you all of the content that I made for that month, so videos, streams, blogs, Twitter threads, and stuff like that, so that you can keep up with all my stuff. And then I'm going to be telling you stuff that I plan on writing for the next thing, and I'm also going to share some like articles and things in the news that I found really interesting that month that I would like to share with you. So if you want to keep up with my content and find out what I'm doing every month, I'm probably going to be sending the email at the end of every month, so then I can reflect on the past month content that I made. So if you want to sign up, you definitely have time before July's newsletter goes out. So make sure you sign up for that. And then finally, if you like gaming content, I've been streaming on Twitch my Animal Crossing game, and I'm also planning on streaming other games. I play a lot of other games. I'm just not sure which one like game is like good streaming content. But anyways, I have a link to my Twitch channel down below as well. So I got my coffee here so that we can stay caffeinated while we're going through this whole review. And I also put out a post on my Twitter and my Instagram asking you all for questions that you have for me related to this video. So if you're not following me already on Instagram or Twitter, my links to my socials are down below so that you can ask a question next time I ask for some. So I broke this down into parts. So first I'm going to be reviewing classes, next the workload, after that professors/advising, peers and students, the overall department, research opportunities, and finally thesis. And I'm going to sneak the questions in there that are related to each thing that I brought up in the sections. So first and foremost, I'm going to be reviewing the classes. I only have one more sociology class this upcoming semester. I imagine that it will not be super groundbreaking to change my entire experience of my degree. So I'm not going to be including that class, but I can tell you about all the other 9 classes that I've taken. So the introduction class, the introductory class, is called Sociology and the View of the World. I'm not sure if they've changed the title of that, but it's a pretty basic class. Like, it's a basic introduction to sociology and all of the great sociologists and just like how to think about or think like a sociologist. So in my class, like, we just covered a bunch of themes from like racism to gender to class. And then like my professor had a specialty in gangs, so we talked about that in the class, but it was really basic. I think we only wrote 2 papers and we did 1 group presentation, which was actually pretty great. I learned a lot about the methods of studying sociology. But yeah, if you're a sociology major and you plan on being a sociology major, then you have to take that class. And it was pretty chill. And from what I understand, like, that's how all of the introductory classes are, is it's basically just introducing you to all of the topics in sociology and the great thinkers of sociology. I'm going to tell you about my favorite classes, and my favorite class by far was a very popular class. It was super impacted, and it was from one of my favorite Soc professors, and it was called Criminal Organizations and Gangs, and it was a fantastic class. I learned so much in that class. There was a lot of reading, but a lot of it was really conducive to what we were learning. I learned like the history of gangs, how a lot of them were formed for like unification of neighborhoods, black neighborhoods who were being violated and terrorized by white gangs. So most of the early black gangs that we know of now, like the Crips, were actually formed to protect the neighborhood from white terrorized violence. But of course, you never learn any of that when they talk about gangs in the media. They always just paint them as violent and stuff like that. Also learned a lot about like how economic segregation in neighborhoods leads to like a tunnel for gang violence. And one of the really interesting things that we thought about in that class is like fraternities are like a socially acceptable form of gangs where like white middle or upper middle class men form a gang essentially, and it's for them to, of course, party and stuff like that, but like the reason that they keep them around is because they justify saying that they're for networking purposes, so that like white upper class men can meet successful white upper class men and then climb the economic ladder. And if you think about it, like there's no opportunities like that for Latino men and black men in like underserved communities, and instead these gangs offer an economic alternative because, you know, they promise that you can make money, you can get social capital, you will look like macho and stuff like that. So that just blew my mind. Yeah, it was my favorite class. And not only did we talk about like street gangs, but we talked about like major criminal organizations, like global, worldwide, elite criminal organizations. And it was just a great class, like just learned so much in that class. I get a lot of questions about sociology, and people ask me like, is there a lot of math? I'm not really great at math, and I'm kind of nervous to take a math class. No, there's not a lot of math. The only math class that I had to take was quantitative research methods, and it's basically like a statistics course. And I will tell you honestly, I am bad at math, like math. And I know that people say like women shouldn't talk about being bad at math because it just creates like gender differences. But genuinely, like regardless of my gender, my brain and science and math are just not compatible. I'm just not that type of person. And I did well in my math class, in my sociology math class. So for me, it really was not very difficult. You just have to keep on top of your homework. That's all that I experienced, is we had a lot of lab homework and it was really chill. So yes, not a lot of math. Other classes, my methods class, qualitative research methods, loved that class. It was excellent. Unfortunately, that professor's not there anymore. And neither is the professor that I was talking about for criminal organizations and gangs, which is so depressing because I took so many great classes with her. But I really enjoyed the methods class, and I think it was super helpful for me to continue on to research later and to do my thesis much later. Least favorite class, honestly, I can't think of like a class that was bad, you know, that like, I don't even know. I guess maybe my least favorite class would probably be my quantitative methods course, but that's just because like I don't really use anything from that class because I'm not a methods researcher, but I understand why I had to take that class. It's just in terms of applicability for me, it just doesn't apply in my studies. And I don't really feel like I'm more of a qualitative person. I like reading, I like theory. And so all of the classes that I've taken in theory and stuff, even if it wasn't like a fun class, like I got something out of it that I still use now. My quantitative methods class wasn't bad. It's just, it was my least favorite. If I had to go back and take it again, I wouldn't be very excited to do so. Okay, now let's talk about the workload. So this is kind of going to be different depending on what type of person you are. So like I said, I'm the type of person, I really love reading, I really love writing, I really love public speaking. All of those things are my strong suits, but my weaknesses are science and math and all the stuff related to that. So that being said, sociology is definitely a major that is super conducive to writing, reading, and public speaking. So to me, the workload doesn't seem that extreme because I already excel in those skill sets. But if you're somebody who like doesn't like critical reading, can't read a lot, somebody who does not like writing, then you're probably going to struggle in this major or this discipline a lot more than I did. So I would say overall it was a manageable workload. There were definitely times when I got very stressed. Like this past semester when I was completing thesis was very stressful. But I made it out on the other side and I did well. So that's why I would say that it's manageable. But yes, I will let you know there is a lot of reading, like a lot of reading. There is a lot of writing, especially for thesis. You're going to be doing tons of writing for your thesis. This professor isn't there anymore, but I did have one professor that I took 3 times, and we literally had to write a forum post every single week. And she was the type of professor where, like, if you did like minimal work, like you just did bullet points or whatever, like that wasn't enough. Like, I think you had to write like 2 pages fully to do well, because I took her class 3 times. The first 2 classes, I kind of like did minimal writing and stuff for the forums, and I got B's and B pluses. Then the third class, I like went all out, was constantly on top of my forums, wrote a lot for my forums, and I got an A. So that tells you that there are certain professors that are going to expect a lot of writing out of you. I also had group projects, but whenever we had group projects, they were just like group presentations. So it wasn't anything too stressful. I think I did a group project maybe like 3 times total in my sociology major that I can think of. And then we had a lot of independent projects. Like for my qualitative research methods class, we basically had to do our own research project throughout the whole semester. And then most of the time, you're just doing independent papers. So that's basically a review of the workload. I really enjoyed it. I think I got a lot out of it. And even though there were times where it was extremely stressful, like I said, I feel like if I made it out on the other side and I didn't drop the class, then it was a good enough workload for me. On to professors and advising. Honestly, every single professor that I've met at Pitzer, really at the Claremont colleges in general, has been really awesome, really kind, very supportive, and most of them have really unique and interesting research interest and specialties. But some of my favorite professors that I've had were sociology professors, and every single one of them was accommodating, because I have disability accommodations, because I have chronic depression and bipolar disorder. And so whenever I was struggling, all of my professors were accommodating and really helped me and just wanted to see me succeed. And my advisor is also a sociology professor. I took his class twice, really enjoyed it both times, and he was like so supportive of me. And what's really great is that his research focused on the same type of research topics that I was interested in, so I really recommend. It's not going to be possible every time, but at least to find an advisor who is supportive of your research efforts, and bonus points if they like are doing the same type of research theme or topic as you. It doesn't have to be the exact same research question that you're looking into, but they have like some knowledge about whatever it is that you're researching, because they will become very helpful when a thesis comes around. With peers/students, I met a lot of fellow sociology majors who I really enjoyed working with and learning from, and there really was never, in my experience, an instance in a sociology class where like somebody who was a sociology major said something that was like offensive or like strange or like hateful. Like none of that ever happened. In my experience meeting the sociology majors, a lot of them are very concerned about social issues, very aware, willing to learn, and if they do ask questions, like they ask it in a really respectful manner. So yeah, I especially really enjoyed learning about all of my fellow peers in thesis and what topics they were working on, because I learned a lot from them. Okay, so overall, the department, I would have to say I haven't gotten to know like everybody in the sociology department, but the ones that I have gotten to know, I've had really positive experiences with. But I will say, like, there were some professors, like in my 2 last semesters, where I've been like, oh, I haven't even known that you existed. I also didn't find out until my junior year, my last semester of junior year, that they were having sociology lunches. Like, I don't know if it was like a weekly or like monthly basis or something, but I didn't even know those existed. And that would have been really great to know when I was like a freshman or a sophomore, like trying to figure out my major. But yeah, I guess that's something that they had. And I only heard of them having one event, which again was in my junior year, where they had a previous sociology graduate come back and do a talk about like his career and stuff. But that was only once, and I never heard of an event like that happening again. So I wouldn't say that, like, I've seen other majors on campus where they like constantly hold events and they like want you to get to know other majors. But honestly, I never really got to know other sociology majors unless I was in class with them, and I would like keep showing up in class with them. Like, we would take the same classes and I'd be like, oh, you're a sociology major. And they'd be like, yeah. And I'd be like, okay, that's how I know that you're a sociology major. So I do wish that the department had more like mixers and social events and stuff like that so we could get to know each other. But I did, so there's a sociology major at Pomona College, and I have heard of them having like actual social events for sociology majors. So I know that it's something that they could definitely accomplish. So overall, I would say that the department has a lot of work to do in terms of connecting the sociology students together and maybe doing more like the events where previous sociology grads come back and talk about how they applied their degree. Okay, so this question was about the department, and it's a question I got on Instagram, and I'll put it right here. And it says, what was your favorite part of the sociology department, and what's one thing that they can improve on? So I would say my favorite part would definitely be the professors for sure. I honestly met so many cool people, and probably my qualitative methods class. Like, that is the one class that taught me a lot of what I need to know. And it was super applicable. And like, I'm definitely going to be using the skills that I learned in that class for the rest of my career. And one thing that they can improve on is, like I said before, my department needs to do more in terms of socializing the students and like creating events. So that we can interact a lot more with each other and like also just like bring like, I don't know, important people on campus. Research opportunities. Now, I would have to say, in terms of at Pitzer and the professors, I never really heard of research opportunities. Like, I don't know how it works for like STEM majors, but from what I understand is like, they'll, like a STEM major will like know a professor, they'll get close to that professor, and then that professor will be like, hey, I'm going to do research on this topic. Do you want me to like hire you for the summer or for the semester, and you can help me do the research? Like, I never had that happen to me, and I never really heard of that happening to any other sociology majors. Instead, I will say my college Scripps did offer really great research opportunities, but they were like independent research opportunities. So at my college, we have a lot of fellowship opportunities, and there was just one year where I decided I wanted to get research experience, so I applied for a fellowship. I got the award, and yeah, I really loved my fellowship. My fellowship was really awesome. I super enjoyed doing it. I think I got a lot out of it. So I would say like Pitzer itself, in terms of research opportunities, I'm not really sure. But in terms of Scripps, absolutely. You can definitely get a lot of research experience at Scripps. Now I'm going to talk about thesis, and then at the end, I'm going to ask a question that somebody asked me about thesis. Say, overall, my thesis experience was positive and great. However, there were some things that I think that Pitzer and Scripps kind of failed to help me with in the process. So I would say, first of all, one of the most important things that people don't tell you and that you need to know, and you kind of only know if you have a good advisor, is that you need to start your thesis work a semester before you do thesis. So at Pitzer, they offer thesis in the spring. So that means the fall before your spring semester, you need to start on your thesis. And what I mean by starting on your thesis, you need to come up with a research topic, question, you need to get IRB approval, and you need to start your interviews if that's the type of work that you're doing. Because basically, when you go into the class in the spring, they kind of expect you to have most of that done, if not all of it done, so then you can actually spend the spring semester writing as opposed to like gathering your research. So for me, I was a first semester senior in this past spring. So that meant that the fall before I was still a junior, and I had done a fellowship to help me with what I thought would be my thesis. But I decided through doing that fellowship that that's not what I wanted my thesis to be about. So I basically needed to come up with a whole new topic. So when I started my thesis in the spring, I basically was at like 0. I had nothing. And so I had to scramble and work really fast and really hard to get it all done. But I did it. And however, I will say, I think one of the only reasons that I was able to do it is because I had already had research experience from my fellowship. And so my best advice as well is learn IRB applications, like learn what it takes to do IRB well before you actually sign up for the thesis course, and get IRB approval before you sign up for the thesis course. Okay, my camera cut me off, and luckily there was only one question and the end that it didn't film. So sorry it's a different angle and stuff, but I believe the last thing that I was talking about was all of my advice as to what you need to do for the thesis. So the question that I got that I'll put up on the screen was, how was the process of thesis? Really have been given like 0 info from either school. So like I said before this, all of my experience about thesis. So my huge advice, again, I reiterate, is to, first of all, get IRB approval in the fall and before you start the actual course for thesis in the spring, because when you're going to be doing IRB, basically depending on what type of methods you're going to do, you have to fill out the application and then you send it to IRB. IRB reads it, and it is inevitable that it will have errors, and they will edit it, send it back to you, and tell you to make these edits. You'll make the edits and then send it back, and then hopefully you did everything right, and they will give you approval. But if you have like a more complicated IRB, like if you're researching a particularly vulnerable group of people, then you're going to have to do a lot more. So you need like a big window of time for you, first of all, completing the application and then all the way to getting approval. So do that before you even start the spring course, and it'll make your professor very happy. Unlike all of us, there were several of us who hadn't gotten IRB and he was like, oh snap. Anyways, second thing, make sure you get all the paperwork done from whatever colleges and especially from Scripps. Just make sure you have all your professors fill out the paperwork that they need to fill out. Make sure you check your deadlines, like ask Scripps when their deadline is, and then ask your professors when their deadlines are. So then you avoid, missing them. That's pretty much it. I would say those are the most important things. Oh, and finally, give yourself checkpoints of when you want things to be finished, because you don't want to save everything for the very end. Like writing it all at the very end is gonna suck. You're going to want to enjoy the last moments of your senior year. So give yourself checkpoints, give yourself outlines and stuff so that when it does come time to writing, it's not as hard. The last question that I got was, what are some things you've learned when studying sociology that have changed the way that you interact with the world? So I would say okay, I've learned a lot, but I'm thinking of specific sociology classes. So one, my criminal organizations and gangs class, I got a lot out of that class. I would say before I went into that class, I had this visual image of gangs as being super violent, being Black and Latino, them causing unnecessary violence, like killing people unnecessarily. It was an individual moral failure. Like, that's the stuff that I got from the media. When I actually took the class, I learned about how our economic system has failed our Black and Latino and LGBTQ youth, and how like economics insecurity is a huge reason why there have been so many uprisings and gangs and stuff like that in the past few years. I learned as well about the racism that caused a lot of gangs. Like I told you in the very beginning of the video, that a lot of gangs were formed as defense mechanisms against white violence, against white gangs that were terrorizing Black neighborhoods. I learned as well about like the reason there has been so many Central American gangs is because of the cultural assimilation that has been happening, and how a lot of Mexican groups like ostracize other Central Americans while they're here, and that leads them to group up with each other to find community because they don't feel like they belong in the Americans because they're all white. They don't feel like they belong with Mexicans because Mexican nationality and hegemony. I didn't know about that. Also learned about how the prison system and the ICE and stuff has been deporting a lot of like American. So like there are like Salvadorians and Guatemalans that were like pretty much raised here in America their entire lives, and then they get involved in gang activity, and the United States deports them back to El Salvador and back to Guatemala, where they've like never lived, and then they just kind of create like really violent gangs there that forces refugees to try to come to the border because there's like civil war in their country. Like, all of that I would have been very ignorant of had I not taken this class. So I definitely look now at that situation with a lot of empathy and a lot of compassion, like huge amounts of compassion for gang members and ex-gang members. And I also look at a lot of disdain and animosity towards the economic and political system that is ripe with creating these issues. I also learned in that class as well about like a bunch of the laws here that are basically keeping people in gang activity and stuff. It's just mind-blowing. And then I would say another thing that really changed the way I look is, okay, so when I was in high school, I was a proud Democrat. In fact, I was president of the Young Democrats Club at my high school. And then when I came to college, I think like maybe my freshman year, I probably still identified as a Democrat, but definitely by my sophomore and junior years, like, no, I was not a Democrat anymore. And then I took a political sociology class, and in that class, I learned a lot about the historical failure of the Democrats. And while, they are all part of the economic elite that are just continuing to hoard wealth in this country and pretend that they want to solve the problems of the working class and immigrants and LGBTQ plus and and the racial injustice, but in reality they have no interest in that. And also, like, our Democratic Party is so much further right than any other party that claims to be on the left in the rest of the world. So I have, as a result of my sociology class, have become deeply, deeply, deeply critical of the Democratic Party. Don't get me wrong, I'm critical of the Republican Party for sure, but I feel as though the Democratic Party just kind of has a mask and is pretending to be our friends when they have absolutely no interest in helping the marginalized and the working class. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't have had the evidence and stuff to back that up before I had taken that sociology class. So that is pretty much every question that I got and everything that I wanted to talk about. So I hope that you enjoyed this and that this was helpful if you're thinking about applying to the Claremont colleges, or if you're thinking of being a sociology major in general. I hope that this was helpful. And if you have any other questions related to sociology or college or whatever, make sure you leave them in the comments down below. Let me know what you thought of this video as well. And finally, please make sure to check the links in the description to my website, to my blog, to my social media accounts, so that you can keep up with my information and you can sign up for my newsletter on my website. But that's everything. That's all I have for y'all. I hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video.